Good afternoon, everyone. It looks like there's several others joining us. My name is Rick Denherter with Evergreen Media, and joining me today in different locations are in the shipping container are Jenna Sarda and John Edwards. Jenna is our managing director. She handles a lot of our social and a lot of our content. John Edwards is our creative director. He leads all that beautiful stuff that you see hanging on the wall behind John and Jenna. And you'll note that they're actually practicing appropriate social distancing or close to it. And then off in a remote, unknown location is John J. Eining. He is our digital director. So we are super excited. This is the second webinar that we have been a part of with Elevate Rapid City. We appreciate Elevate Rapid City coordinating these and giving us the opportunity to participate. And we hope that we'll provide some useful information today in light of kind of the crazy things that are going on right now. So you can, to access this webinar, I think within a couple of days, you'll be able to log on to the Elevate Rapid City website under resources, and they're archiving and sharing those, all the past. So I've tried to participate in several, and it's been some great information. So, and I think as Jenna mentioned, you probably heard, we're going to, part of this today, we want it to be interactive. So if you have questions, you can either put them in the chat. We all have our chat windows open so we can see those, or you can submit them under the Q&A. So, but if, yeah, just to kind of kick things off, this has been a crazy couple of weeks. We are working on a lot of deadlines right now for things that are coming out in the future, but we're also working with a lot of clients right now to kind of talk through some of the, I don't like to use the word crisis, but kind of crisis management right now. A lot of people are trying to figure out, you know, what to do to stay relevant and how to stay with your doors closed or restricted services. You know, everybody's really kind of trying to get creative and figure out ways to still stay connected to your consumers or to your audience without overwhelming or bombarding them with a lot of information. Or, you know, it's probably not for certain types of businesses, it's probably not an ideal time to be selling right now either. So, you know, we're making modifications and we're helping clients make modifications to kind of their existing, and not only trying to forecast what happens because everything seems to change so quickly, but not only trying to forecast and help work through what happens next week, but also what happens probably in the next, you know, 2 to 3 weeks, or hopefully not 2 to 3 months. But some of the things that we are finding relevant and helpful right now relate a lot to digital and your digital presence, and really taking a look and taking the time that you have right now as you're social distancing to evaluate kind of what's going on with those platforms, and making sure that you've got good information out there, making sure that you've got up-to-date information out there. So one of the questions that I've been asked you know, a number of times this past week is, as it relates to advertising, specifically to advertising, and this is whether it's in print or digital or radio or TV, anything that you consider to be part of your traditional marketing mix. Should I pull back? Should we be pulling back? Should we be stopping what we're doing, you know, in light of the situation? And my answer, or our answer, has been no, first of all, but really to kind of drill down and take a look at what you're doing and make sure that the messaging is appropriate, and make sure that, you know, the audience and the tools and the vehicles that you're using are netting some return. Most of the organizations that you work with or that you have things booked with should be able to give you real-time data as to what they're seeing on their platforms or in their mediums. And don't be afraid. I would encourage you, in fact, to kind of reach out to those people. If you're running something on radio or TV right now, make sure you engage with your rep, or make sure you engage with, if you're using an agency, your agency, and ask for information. If there's, you know, the ROI and the response and the numbers are going to obviously be a lot less or a lot smaller than what you've seen in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should turn it off. You should keep it up. You should try to be consistent with the timing of your messaging, but maybe modify your messaging slightly. So we did a webinar last week, I believe it was, and the old example that we use is advertising is a little bit like a current day faucet versus an old farm pump. A current day faucet, you can turn it on and off. You turn it on, you get water right away. You turn it off, it stops. Advertising is more like that old farm pump. You've got to kind of make sure that you keep pumping to keep before water starts flowing. And so that's really kind of where we're at, and the suggestions that we're making is to keep some form of it flowing. So I'm going to ask Jenna and Jay to kind of jump in here a little bit, and we can start with social if you'd like. I know one of the questions that has come up a lot is, what are your, I guess, best practices or helpful tips right now for people that are on, you know, social, that have a business page? How can they kind of, what are some best practice guidelines right now for how people should be utilizing that platform, Jenna?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy time in a kind of a good way if you're in the marketing world, just because from a digital standpoint, and Jay, feel free to, this is your realm, so please jump in, but people are at home and they're online, and this can be a really great time for your business to keep up that share of voice online. So if you don't have a website or access to update it frequently, Facebook and social media platforms like Instagram, you know, all the other popular ones, they are the best way to talk to people right away. In that field, there are more people using it now because they need to talk to people right away. So that one time a week that you've been posting might need to be upped a little bit. I would say that 3 times a week minimum. Daily is best, especially if you are in the retail space, the restaurant space, really any industry that needs to be keeping up with your client or your target audience. One of our clients, we've created a private Facebook group because they kind of run on a membership base, but we needed to communicate information right away, and emails getting bombarded. So social is a really great way to kind of meet people where they're at, but know that there are more people on it right now. So you may see your visibility start to decrease. Ways that you can go about that is, instead of posting 5 posts within an hour, I would not suggest doing that. You're going to see a lot of engagement decrease. Try and space them out a little bit. Don't post more than 10 times a day. That gets a little crazy. I try to stay in that, you know, give a 2 or 3 hour range between the 2 posts that you make. Utilize amazing groups. Elevate Rapid City created Rapid City to Go. Wonderful, wonderful idea. You can post once a day on that about your business and the things that you've been doing. Yeah. You guys aren't asking very many questions. I'm really nervous.
And I actually have a question. I had a conversation with a client a couple of days ago, and they don't currently have a social presence. Is now a good time to start a social presence, or is it such that you end up being too far behind the curve to actually really gain much momentum or much traction?
You know, I'm torn about it. I really do feel that you should be on social in today's world, no matter what. Whether it's in a COVID crisis situation or, 6 months from now where we're looking at this and hopefully seeing summertime. But I would get on social, and now's the time, especially if you can back that with some paid advertising through social media. Make sure that your targets are on point. I'm sure, Jay, you can elaborate more on, target audiences and other things that you could do to promote digitally, but it's an easy way to get out there relatively quickly to get started up on Facebook and put some momentum behind it.
Yeah, I think even now, like especially now with the shift into that, so many people now being digital, being on the market, if you're not on social and if you're not using analytics for your website, I mean, right now you've got to be in that digital realm. It's giving you so much info and market opportunity to just find out more about your audience. I think, whether you start a Facebook or an Instagram page today or whatever, like get on that business manager for Facebook, get into your web analytics for Google. If you haven't already been paying attention to these things or had access to them, I think now more than ever is kind of that wake up call that you should be doing it, because it's just so much invaluable data on, who's paying attention to you and why, that you can pick up, starting today, even, throughout this, and then something that's going to be ongoing for a while. I mean, forever, because, your web statistics, your social platforms, it's kind of goes back to what you were saying about posting is, right now paying attention to those analytics and that data is super important to understand, what your audience is, which might be a little bit different today than it was, a month ago. But right now it's about collecting that data. And if you're not cranking out content, in a scheduled manner, but if you're not cranking out content, you're just missing opportunities.
Right. And speaking of content, we have a question from Robert, and he had talked about TikTok. I hope some people are on TikTok. I am not. I follow it closely though, because there's a lot of really cool marketing things that you can do with TikTok now that they've expanded kind of what you can do. And actually, I just shared an article with our team this morning that YouTube is coming out with a platform called Short, and it's supposed to compete with YouTube or with TikTok. So I think that it is transforming, but I think you need to use it very carefully as a business and make sure it matches the tone of voice that you want representing your company. I've seen some really cool things with artists and graphic designers that show like time lapses of their work. That is really neat to promote their, creative industry. Are you on TikTok?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things about TikTok, people get kind of caught up on what TikTok is. Like, yeah, it's a, kind of like Vine, but more music related. I know Quibi's coming out, and that's going to be a huge thing too, where it's a little bit kind of like taking that, but then putting it into a show element. But like one of the most important things with TikTok is when you're talking about being active on TikTok, you don't have to be making videos and stuff. You can be making ads on TikTok, because like focus on, like right now there's a market there, that there's an audience there. And a year ago it was a lot younger, but just like Instagram or even Facebook back a while back, like those audiences get older generations start to get more into those things. There's plenty of buyers on TikTok.
And that applies to other platforms too. I mean, Snapchat is a perfect example of that too. Just because your business isn't on Snapchat, if your audience is there, it's a great way to capture them. What's the other end? Rick, I think this one's for you. Are ad sales still valuable during this time, and what should they be doing?
Yes. So that's a great question. And obviously for those of you that don't know, a big portion of our portfolio is print medium. We do have digital assets that go along with each of those titles, but our primary focus in that lane is print. And I think that, it's like anything else. The question you have to ask yourself is, I think it's three things. Number one is the messaging, is the audience and messaging for that particular publication right for you right now? If it was right for you 6 months ago, chances are it's probably still right. And I would again reach out to see if maybe those publications are doing anything special or any special issues as it relates to, kind of what's happening right now. Number two is the distribution model. We have in this market, we have a lot of free distribution publications, or what we call rack type publications. People globally, I joined a publisher's Slack group earlier this week, and it's publishers all across the country, and it's a mix of paid subscriptions, versus, like a direct mail product versus rack distribution. Most of the publishers agree that the rack distribution part of it for the immediate future is challenging. We have to look for new opportunities. So take that into consideration. People aren't out and about as much, so the likelihood that they're going to pick up your magazine is maybe slimmer or less than it would be in the past. And then think about the messaging. What's your messaging? Is it something that, when you marry the audience with the circulation, is there something going on in your business right now that would be relevant to that audience as it relates to this particular situation? So, and I want to go back to what Jenna said just a few minutes ago, or maybe it was Jay. I think one of the things that we see happen on a regular basis is people they get lost or get confused. Their messaging gets confused. They tend to maybe do something in print that's different than what they're doing, on traditional TV, radio, newspaper. And then they also, maybe shift a little bit when they're doing something digitally. I think now more than ever it's more important now than ever to make sure that your messaging is consistent, to make sure that your branding is consistent, so that people recognize you across all those spaces. Don't send mixed messages. Be consistent. Make sure that your print ads marry up with your digital ads, and they marry up with your TV ads. So, but I do. And the second part of that question was, about digital. I think if you haven't been on social or digital, now is a great time. There's more eyes glued to screens right now than there ever has been in the past, and hopefully ever will be in the future. But yeah, both are still relevant. It's just, it really comes down to a question of, again, reconnecting or reaching out to, the publisher or, your sales rep, and kind of asking them to walk you through some of the opportunities and what they're seeing in their business right now. So,
and I think to piggyback on that before we go to Chris's question, is looking at your timeline. And I think that's kind of a good segue into, common marketing practices that could be put on hold or should be put in place. Looking at your timeline is so important when it comes to marketing. Yes, we're putting out fires right now. That's what crisis communications is. But we still have to keep moving forward as professionals promoting our business and looking at what kind of messaging can I put out as we start to come out of this. I know Rick and Jay talked last week on post-COVID situations and ideas to keep moving forward. So we have a blog post on that and link to the webinar that Elevate Rapid City put on their YouTube channel. I would definitely check on that. But things that you could put on hold right now, or practices to put on hold, obviously event promotion, that is kind of out the window. Anything that means like coming together or I mean, I just had a post that I had scheduled out, almost published, that's like, let's grab coffee and take a tour. And it's like, no, you can't be promoting that right now. So just really analyzing what you did have scheduled and making sure that the timeline of it is appropriate for the situation.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Mark?
Nope. Go ahead.
To do them both at the same time here, to back up a little bit, like about ad sales and magazine ads, I think what is important right now is assessing the magazines and the ad sales that you're actually putting out there. When we talk about magazine ads or publication ads, a lot of the times we get caught up and on the physical publication itself. If you're running an ad sale or a magazine ad in a publication that is actually, keeping up with things, these places should be pushing their digital issues, and your ad's going to be in that digital issue, and people, are going to still be on those platforms, grabbing these on social and things like that. That audience hasn't went anywhere. They're just a little bit more digital than they have been. But those platforms, those publications should already have digital versions of those publications available. So,
and we have audience too, whether you're us or whether you are the news or, a newspaper or anything like that, even if it's not print media, even if it's just traditional, all of them have an audience that follow them. And more often than not, they do have those digital entities that can go along with it.
Yeah. And when we're talking about like marketing strategies or, practices to look at right now, I mean, of course, your direct sales and, point of purchases are going to be tough right now, especially because no one's getting out and things like that. But you should be taking that time and effort to kind of shift that skew into like looking at co-branding opportunities locally, things that are happening where people are pivoting their business model or their service a little bit. Try to see if you can be a part of that or help them in some way. Right now, even though we're stuck in our homes, I think word of mouth is still so strong because everybody's jumping on like the House Party app or the Hangout apps and Facebook and things like that. So I think, especially as people are constantly talking to each other about the current COVID crisis and things like that, the things that you're doing digitally and the things that you're doing on your social media, these people are talking about. Because honestly, like, with them not going to work every day, not being able to be out, what they're seeing socially or on websites in digital and any platform, whether it's a piece of content, whether it's a meme or something, these are the things that people are talking about right now. So word of mouth, again, is still really strong. It's just kind of done through a virtual realm.
Now, when you're going through, this is kind of a question for you, John, but there is so much popping up in our news feeds now. How can you visually attract attention to you?
I think it's the same challenge that we've faced for a long time. It's making yourself look distinctive, but as Rick said, keeping it consistent with across the board. Wherever you're putting your messages out, it needs to have the same tone, tenor, be recognisably you. But yes, it's a much busier world now. It's a much busier environment. You have to make a little bit more effort to stand out. I think people are trying a lot harder, and there's a lot of designers that are really seizing this opportunity to really kind of showcase what they do and being creative and just thinking about a different way of doing something. Again, that's coming back to something that Rick said, is now's the opportunity for you to talk to your suppliers, your designers, whoever's working for you, your agency, and say, okay, how can I stand out? My competitors are doing this. What can I do? How can I jump this? How can I make this work for me?
Yeah. Having those professionals that you can talk to helps your network, especially if you're a small business owner just plugging along by yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of that goes, both sides of looking at what your design is and if it's fluid, between all your markets, and then your message, going back to your messaging. I think now more than ever is that time where you should really be creating your brand story and getting out and, focusing on, your owner or some of your lead people and humanizing your brand a little bit. You know, people are striving to know how other people are handling, you know, shelter at home and things like that, and how they're getting through it. So some of that opportunity right now is really bringing that human side of your brand to the table and sharing that with people.
And John, we talk about this on a fairly consistent basis. Because we have time, I think a lot of, and I would assume that this is true cross platform. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the wheel of, you know, just kind of regurgitating the same thing that we've been saying over and over again. I know there's companies out there, you know, that evaluate what they're doing on a quarterly basis or a semi-annual basis, or, you know, on some consistent or regular schedule. But we do have some downtime right now. Is this a good time to really kind of look and drill down, you know, yeah, making sure it's consistent, but are there opportunities to maybe even dig deeper than that, to really look at kind of what's going on with your messaging and your creative, and how would you propose that somebody go about doing that?
I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's the perfect time to do that almost hard restart. As we talked about, if you haven't got social media at the moment, the best time to do it was yesterday. If you've got time to evaluate, if your customer demographic or the customer profile is changing because of the market forces, which everyone's is, you have to look at that. And then you can maybe look to shift your business's effective solution to those customers to match that. And the best way to do that is visually. What do you say? What does that look like? I fully agree with Jay. To humanize a lot of businesses is working tremendously well. I think a lot of what we're seeing digitally at the moment are positive human stories. I think there's a lot of emotion, a lot of very emotive driven concepts working really well for not only individuals, but small and medium sized companies across the globe. So again, I'd recommend asking for that evaluation. And if you need help with that evaluation, go to your marketing team, go to the people that help you with your advertising or help you with your radio or your TV, and say, what can we do different? What is my customer looking like right now? Because my customer's changing.
Yeah, that's huge. But to know that like this is such a quick pace that we're at right now, that it doesn't stay the same for a month or a season. It's literally week by week.
Yeah, and like for my side, like that's wonderful. It's kind of like,
is our internet
hard pushing people to the idea of like, this is digital and this is how it's been, but now it's, you know, just kind of more on the forefront. You know, one of the most important things is to learn from your industry. Like, you know, look at what your competitors are doing and never touch that. And it's important to not only look at what they're doing and seeing if they're being active, or if you can, you know, take advantage of them not being active, but also, you know, going more down what John's saying is look at what they're looking like. Like what is their advertising and marketing looking like right now? You know, just like a week ago, I was talking to one of our clients, and they're an outdoor business. And so they were running in a print magazine, and, you know, they're used to doing lifestyle, like outdoors type shots. And, you know, we were looking through a past publication and kind of flipping through, and it was just kind of like, you know, looking and being like, you know, your ad, although, you know, your logo is different and things like that, like this is all hunting. So what is really differentiating you from anyone else in this magazine, or even from the content? So, you know, some of those things about, you know, how fast we're scrolling through digital, and when we're thinking about our market, like, you know, if they're going onto social and things like that, their audience is hunters and outdoorsmen. So that feed is going to show a lot of that stuff. So you have to find out a way of, you know, setting yourself apart through that design to capture something, and then using that messaging to actually hold that attention.
Cool. Any other questions? guys are very quiet. No worries, I wrote out a list here. Sorry, we're having some internet problems. Obviously, Rick kind of keeps disappearing. Jay, how easy is it to get on e-commerce if you are a retailer? Like, is that something that you need to look into, is taking website sales?
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you have a direct product and you haven't been on e-commerce already, if there's no major reason other than time or money, then you've got to make that shift now. And it's great to go out and use a resource like an agency or a design firm that can, really solidify you. And what I always say, it's your way of making your salesmen look like they're wearing slacks and not jeans. Because I mean, that's what your website is if it's an e-commerce, it's constantly selling 24/7. Right now, that has become your new front line. That's your new brick and mortar. So that's super important. I think that, sometimes some people have really held off on it because I think that it's going to be super expensive and things like that. And it can be, but, there's also huge resources out there like Shopify and Square right now that these things can literally just take moments to put together, just a couple hours. And then once you crack into that, then it's about actually using the internet as your wheelhouse and, looking at getting that e-commerce and those products set up, but then also looking at getting them onto the Google Shopping, getting them onto Facebook Marketplace and things like that. So I think, it's really important that if you have a direct product right now, that you need to be looking at your e-commerce solution, because that's something you can shore up right now that's going to last forever. And, it should have been something that you were kind of already looking at already. But then once you get that kind of on its feet, you can look at extending that. And right now, this is where your audience is. This is where buyers are. And of course, it's a little up and down on what people are actually purchasing and people being a little bit tighter. But it's still going to drive some sales. And if anything, then, once we come out of this, it's going to be set up. It's going to be good to go. And you can do so much more. I mean, one of the most important things about an e-commerce suite or digital selling is your analytics again, and looking at your sales funnel and finding out, what's happening between, why aren't people buying? Where are they dropping off? What are people thinking of my product? So, setting up e-commerce right now is probably one of the best things for actually investing into something right now that can last forever.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. Like Jay said, it can be, there's a lot of out of the box solutions out there that are relatively easy to set up. My neighbor is a small business owner, a small retailer. They've never had a website. They do a lot on social. They're super active on social, and that's been successful for them. But I talked to them last night, and they are actually working right now to get a kind of a small simplified shopping app set up so that they can do some business online. But there's more opportunities if Facebook will allow you to sell products. There are other opportunities besides having your own website, but obviously, as Jay said, that's something you own, and it's something that you can kind of monitor and keep track of the analytics and look to see what people are looking for and maybe make some adjustments on the fly as it happens. So there's a lot of, I really am blown away. There's a question on here. What do you see? And my internet is all of a sudden sketchy for some reason. So if I cut out, I apologize. There was a Midco truck outside earlier, but what do you see? Are there any silver linings in what's going on right now? And I think a lot of the things that we've been talking about could be perceived as silver linings. It gives you a chance to breathe. It gives you a chance to really kind of drill down and look at your messaging, to look at the way you're sharing your messaging and your creative and those types of things. But it also gives you a chance to really, we seldom stop during a normal business cycle. We really don't do a very good job internally of kind of reassessing our audience. We build a model and we produce content around that model and around that perceived audience, and then we go. And we make slight shifts along the way, but I think right now is a really good time, and you can get this, you know, this is information you get from your Facebook analytics, from your web analytics. Who's engaging with you? Who's looking at your website? Look, drill down on those analytics and really take a look at, and maybe start to understand. I think we all get caught in the mindset, or as business owners, because we love what we do and we think our product is special, and you know, we often think of ourselves as the consumer, and in some cases that may be right, but in other cases, if it's not, and you're making assumptions and decisions based on what you prefer, or telling the story, you know, from your perspective, it's a great time to really stop and, you know, assess all of that. I think that, and I think that's important, and it's something you can do right now. But I think what's really important, and we talked about this in the webinar that we did last week, I think that we're all focused on how do we survive what's happening. But I think the question that we need to make sure we're asking ourselves is, what are we doing right now that will enable us to ramp up and be nimble as soon as the crisis is over, or, you know, as things kind of start to evolve and change. So to me, for me personally, as a business owner, one of the biggest silver linings is it's really teaching us that we don't have to keep doing things the same way we've been doing them. I've been on more Zoom calls and more Zoom webinars and meetings than I ever have in the past. And it is definitely something that I will use moving forward. So it's expanding, you know, the way I communicate with my customers. It's giving me another opportunity and another way to connect with them. Quick 10-minute call. I don't have to go out. I don't have to go see them. They don't have to stop and, you know, spend time with me. We can do it over a computer. So
I think I'm a huge proponent of silver linings in any situation. So I think that this is a huge opportunity to see a silver lining, especially even if you're not in an industry like ours, where, you know, there's deadlines and you have to constantly create content for your audience through written words and print. But I mean, we've seen examples of restaurants putting in drive-in or drive-through windows. I'm sure it's been thought of and passed by, but now it's kind of been a push in the right direction. And now that's an investment that's been made and can be used to continue in the future. We've seen, let's see, what are some other ones that we've seen? We've seen like virtual shopping.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, the sales people are making off of a virtual shopping spree is huge. And then tie that up with the e-commerce, that's a totally sustainable solution to what could have been a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We have a client that's actually helping her customers shop via FaceTime. And sure, would she prefer to have people coming into the store? Absolutely. Would they prefer to be coming in and shopping? Absolutely. But in her particular instance, there are probably opportunities beyond this that she would be able to do that and be able to offer that as a service. If somebody lives outside of the market, or if somebody is, you know, for whatever reason, unable to come in and shop and needs something quick, it's just a new way of working with your customer and being available and making the experience match their current situation, or helping them, you know, to accomplish something that if you weren't thinking outside the box and you weren't making those services available, you know, they would go shop someplace else. The other, and I'm just going to keep going for a minute, the other silver lining is, you know, we all, as small retailers, most of you, I don't know what your businesses are necessarily, but, you know, for the retail world, a lot of small businesses feel like they're competing with Amazon, and they get frustrated and they, you know, struggle with, well, I can't do that. They're so huge. They have so many products and so many services. Well, I truly believe that when this is all said and done, because we want people to shop local and there's a huge push to do that right now, I think that's going to, you're going to see a swing away from that mentality, and not only in the shop owner, but also in the consumer, and a wanting to reattach and a wanting to shop local and really, participate and be a, drive commerce in our own communities. So.
Yeah, I think, being digital, it's interesting to think of the silver linings of pieces. What, with our market in our area, that's where my mind goes for a silver lining is right now we have this great opportunity that, with everyone being kind of sheltered up, they are going to just be, craving that experience and getting outside and things like that once this all passes. So I think that there's a huge silver lining for our tourism industry, not starting where we would hope it would be in a time frame, but I think once people are able to actually get out and things like that, I think it's really going to explode. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to push that idea of come out, adventure, and experience, and getting yourself out there from that angle. There's a lot of people in our area, locally, that have always been like, oh yeah, I'll go do that. I'll get to the Southern Hills someday, or go check out the hot springs and things like that. And, as they're sitting here digitally in front of this, looking at this, you've got to grow that interest, because they're just going to be, wishing for things to do. But, being digital, for me, it's more of, what I'd say more of a golden opportunity. I mean, in the past, so much of selling or business models have always been, man, if I could just get my product in front of people, if I could just get my salesman in front of people and they could pitch this and I could help explain this and things like that, or get out to that trade show and stuff like that. Right now needs to be your golden opportunity of realizing that you can do that digitally, and that you don't have to be that face-to-face. And that if you're, pumping out your messaging and your content, if you're exposing these people to what your actual product and business is, that, this is your digital doorway. And so for me, it's more of looking at that golden opportunity of realizing that you can get real-time data and facts back. Used to be that you'd have to go take something to a focus group, or, take it to a show and get feedback that way, but it's just not like that anymore. And I think that this needs to be a giant wake-up call for a lot of retailers and business owners that, you're not utilizing digital the way that you should have been. And, right now you need to wake up and realize all this data and all this invaluable information is sitting right at your fingertips. And can be collected 24/7 through social, through your websites.
And I think one other piece of advice is, look at what your competitors are doing right now. Look at how aggressive they're being. If you're number one in your category, that's fantastic. Make sure you're doing what you need to do to stay there. If you're not number one, go out and look and see what number one is doing. See how they are navigating, what's happening right now, and, maybe mirror that a little bit. And if you're going to spend some money, it might not be a bad idea to spend money doing what others are doing, because if they're being seen, you're being seen. So, but yeah, lots of incredible creative opportunities. Has anybody, we don't have any more questions, but I want to ask a question. Is there, and maybe you're not willing to share, but if you are, is there something that you're doing right now that you've not done in the past that's working for you? And if you're not comfortable hopping on here and sharing it, I would be interested to know, and maybe you could follow up with an email or something like that. But it's just been amazing to watch people adapt. And yeah, right now it's out of necessity, absolutely. But it still proves to me and proves to a lot of those people that, if you start thinking outside the box is not intended to be where you're supposed to live. It is where we live, and it is the way we do business, but it doesn't hurt occasionally to kind of step outside and look to see if there's new ways, or I don't know that it doesn't even have to be a better way. It just is another opportunity another way to sell, another way to promote your business. So anything else?
Do you guys have like some wrap up pieces? Like what would be the most important thing that you guys want people to take away and think about going forward?
From us?
Yeah, from anything, I guess. Like, so me personally, it's, you know, take this time to develop your tone of voice and pay attention to how it sounds to other people. You know, pay attention to analytics and realize how to use your data correctly, and, you know, produce content. If you're not producing content right now, and as much of it as you can, then you're losing out.
John?
I think it's the opportunity to see this as the biggest challenge that we've had in recent history for retailers in any sector, in any market. Innovate, try things, because if you don't try anything, you're going to stop. And if you stop, you're going to get lost. You've got to try it to innovate. You've got to try and do something different. Do an unexpected way to educate or help your customers or help your staff, your family, your community. This is the time to really to really jump on change.
Yeah, and just real quick on that, like, just like John's saying, like, one of the biggest thing, I beg of you not to stop, because like, never forget acquisition cost. And once you stop doing your marketing, your exposure, your communication, you're right back to square one, and you're right back to just looking at that big bully in the room that's an acquisition cost.
Yeah. Mine would be to stay strong. I know that there's a lot of not so fun, shiny things that are surrounding us and our attention right now, but it's important to not stay course as we always have done, but to keep our goal in mind as to what can be done after this surpasses. This is not going to be forever. We don't know how long it's going to be, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and to stay strong and make sure that your business doesn't just crumble. And, you know, it's like running down a hill, right? Like, you don't want to be going so fast that you're like, well, now what? Yeah. Like, now it's business as usual. Like, you want to have a plan for after.
It's going to restart. Again, as Jenna said, we don't know. It's going to restart. And the best thing you can do for yourselves is to make sure that you're ready when it does, and to use this time to really understand, you know, what you're good at and where you need some work, and where you can innovate and where you can start new things. And, you know, all of the great platforms that we're using right now started out of necessity. Somebody saw a need, you know, they created an MVP. They said, is this something that the market will buy? Is it sustainable? And they launched. And, you know, they've grown their businesses, and millions of people are connected because those people were innovators. So I don't want to think that grandiose or to suggest that, you know, you have to come up with something like that, but it certainly is something that within your world, within your business, that you can really, you know, use this time, use this crisis to, you know, to try and be better today, but also looking at what this looks like a year from now. So, and my last piece of advice is, we are bombarded with information right now. And, you know, when I watch a particular press conference, I've gotten to the point where I have to turn my phone sideways because I can't stand to see the comments that are rolling in. People are using this as an opportunity to, you know, to take jabs at people and things. And, you know, watch what is important, watch so that you're informed and you're aware. But I said to somebody the other day that was commenting on one of I think it was the governor's press conference, and I could see that they were commenting, and they happened to be somebody I know. And, you know, when I messaged them afterwards, and I just said, hey, is that really something that you would say if you were face to face with that person? And I didn't get a response because I know what the answer was. And, you know, and that stuff starts to be overwhelming, and it starts to make you, you know, it kind of makes you, I don't know, it upsets me that people are so willing to jump on and be critical of things when they don't actually have to put their face or actually have to say the words. So I've tried to limit my consumption of information, and it's just, you know, it's really been helpful to me. There's enough going on here that I don't need the other noise. So I have to be here for my team. I want to be here for my team. We want to be here for our clients. And I think if you just deal in facts instead of what could be or might be, or when it's going to happen or when it's going to end, I think that puts us as business leaders in a much better position. So.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, refine that entrepreneurial spirit. You know, I mean, refine that passion. When you started your business or took on your last job, I mean, you know, there were challenges then, and there's going to be more challenges. So it's always important to plan, not react, and you know, dig a little deeper and remember that, you know, you're here where you are right now because, you know, you had that creativity, that passion, and that, you know, that strength, as Jenna said, to go forward, and don't lose that, you know.
Perfect.
And we're here where we are because it's not a situation that we created. So anyway, I think we're done. Unless there's any questions that are going to pop in here at the last minute. Again, just a huge thank you to Elevate Rapid City. I feel sorry for Rachel. She's been coordinating these crazy things, and what a great job has done. Thank you, Rachel, specifically for the logistics behind it. Make sure you hop on Elevate Rapid City's website. They have some tremendous resources. If you're business owners and you're following the SBA programs right now, which is what I did this morning, there's a lot of crazy information out there. I don't think anybody really knows for sure if we're supposed to be applying or not be applying, but you know, it's, yeah. Tom has done a tremendous job of engaging with some of our leaders and really some good information there. But yeah, Elevate, thank you. Rachel, thank you. And if you have questions for us, you can hop on our website, but we really appreciate your time today. And it looks like the weather is going to be beautiful this weekend. Maybe get out and go for a walk and make sure you're social distancing, but be sure to enjoy your weekend. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.